sort of drop this baggage of what it's like to be Black in the US.
Because I'm Black, you're obviously not, trying to like help me check out at the register. Like you're letting a lot of these white Europeans go first. You can easily blend in Brazil. I think that part of that blending in is similar to the United States, where maybe the whiter Brazilians.
In our accommodation, they had a picture on the wall. They had a picture on the wall of like some women like picking cotton.
Picking cotton.
Right? Release yourself of the bondage of like the chip on your shoulder of being Black in the US. Because hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Elevated Perspectives podcast. I'm Courtney.
I'm Justin.
And today we're going to be talking about Blackness Abroad, which is a big topic, right? There's a whole lot to discuss there. But where is this coming from? So we've been traveling for about 2 years now. And I think one of the things we've really started to sort of notice and begin to navigate is that being Black looks, feels, and sometimes just is different in different parts of the world. There are a lot of like contributory factors that go into like how you're treated as a Black person, even though we all know that anti-Blackness is global. So we wanted to spend some time today to just kind of go over this, because one of the main questions that we're asked, especially about certain locations, is what is it like to be Black there? Or do we feel safe as Black people there, right? Things like this. So we just wanted to spend some time talking through that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a huge topic, like you said. I mean, people are going to have their own experience when they travel. And this is, to preface, this is our experience, right? So this is what we've noticed when we've been traveling. It could be totally different for you based on age, sex, religion, anything else.
Yeah, that's a good point. So in making sure that we're tackling this like intersectionally, one thing that we've really had to sort of like realize and grapple with as we think through and talk about this as we travel is that there are so many other factors that go into how you feel somewhere and how you're treated somewhere other than your race. And in the US, right, where we're from, race is such a big, huge thing. Yeah. And it's not to say that it isn't in other parts of the world, but it feels like there are other factors that go into that a little bit more or inform it differently. All right, so we've tried our best to break this down into 3 sections. So the first thing that we'll be discussing is sort of like race and safety, right? I feel like that's the big one that everyone always has questions about. From there, we'll jump into like blending out versus We'll jump into blending in versus standing out. And what that feels like in some places where we felt that. And then afterwards, we'll just go over sort of like our personal experience and reflections in different places.
So yeah, I mean, as far as safety goes, as we know, being Black in the US can be lethal, right? And there's a history that has shown that Black people have to fear for their safety based on their location in the US and making sure that their surroundings and, their mannerisms, their actions, their behavior keeps them safe, right? And we all know those talks, like how to interact with the police, what kind of town or city are you in, and how you present yourself. And so that changes based on where you go when you start traveling. So when we start talking about racism, it's not exactly coming from a place of, I need to protect my safety, and is this lethal?
Yeah. So I think the big thing there is like, you're in the US and it's like just being Black puts a target on your back, because there are literally like weapons here, right? People have guns. Also, the police here are like militarized.
Trigger happy.
Yeah, they're militarized and they're trigger happy, and there's a green line on Black folks. So when we talk about like the sentiment of racism and how it functions, encountering racists in the US can literally get you killed. Encountering racists in other parts of the world, by and large, because things happen, right? Mm-hmm. Anti-Blackness is global. But by and large, it's not going to get you killed or even harmed in a lot of instances. There are a lot of things that will get you harmed, or can get you harmed depending on, where you are and all of this stuff. But like when we literally just talk about like the baseline safety of being a Black person moving freely through the world. You don't have to worry about dying the same way that you do in the US versus being other places.
Yeah. And to give some examples, I mean, we traveled through Colombia, we traveled through Brazil, we traveled through Europe, you know, certain parts of Europe.
That notion too, right, of being around with the kids. I think one thing that's been really interesting, Black and Abroad, is having to sort of drop this baggage of what it's like to be Black in the US. Because I feel like here, especially we were in the South, there's a lot of, even if it's not like explicit lethal racism, there's still potentially harm that comes with it, right? When people reach to touch you or they say something about your hair, like those like microaggressions and what that carries. And I think that we go abroad and it's really easy to carry that with us. I have attempted since to like release myself of the bondage of like bringing that with me. Because when we go to Mexico, we brought the kids to Mexico. We first left. Whitley was super little, right? She was like 10 weeks. And the people were fascinated with her. All the tias, all the abuelas, they were like constantly like bum rushing the stroller. They wanted to see her. They wanted to touch her hair because she's cute. You know what I mean? And they're not used to her hair texture. And I think that dropping that notion of like a white woman in the South wanting to touch my child's hair, very different than some random Mexican grandmother wanting to touch my child's hair.
Yeah.
And like, we still say no. It's like, no toques, no toques. But it's different, you know what I mean?
And even like, did I tell you about my experience in the pharmacy in Portugal?
Did you?
So
with the allergy medicine.
I walked into the pharmacy in Lisbon and I found my product that I wanted to buy and I walked up to the counter to check out, and the woman behind the counter, a white Portuguese woman, is helping everybody but me. And I'm literally standing right in front of her. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, because I'm Black, you're obviously not, you know, trying to like help me check out at the register. Like you're letting a lot of these white Europeans go first. And until I realized there's a queue. Like I was supposed to get a number. I was supposed to grab a ticket in the front of the store, which I didn't know, you know. So there's different customs that you have to really understand. You may not be getting discriminated against at a restaurant.
You're just not paying attention.
Or in a store. Or when someone tells you to hold on or get in the back of the line, like that just may be their cultural, cultural difference that you're not used to. I have never thought about going into a pharmacy and getting a ticket, and my ticket, being displayed on a TV for my number to be called to check out. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. That's like what they do at delis.
I'm ready to cuss this woman out over something that I actually misunderstood. So I think, giving yourself that time to make those adjustments and to really take it in. Am I being discriminated against, or is this a cultural difference I'm not used to?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Because again, it's easy. And then I think that too is how you can really set yourself up to have bad experiences.
Yeah.
Because it's, and I'm not saying that we're at fault here, but there's a chip on your shoulder, right? You walk into situations sort of like tensed up or like braced.
Playing
because
defense.
Yeah, playing defense, exactly, because you assume that, all this racism and anti-Blackness is going to be thrust upon you, and sometimes like that's not it. There just is a cue. So I don't know. I think that's one of the things though that's really interesting, and it's a challenge to sort of like unlearn that behavior and to unpack that. But it goes a long way toward making sure that you are like having good experiences. Yeah,
and it's such an important topic because what I see a lot of content creators do, Black content creators, is say, this was my experience in Italy. This is my experience in Spain. And, they're getting millions of views and it's making people not want to ever go to Italy or Spain, right? You see those two countries pop up a lot. And I don't know, like I'm not the one to tell you, go and figure it out for yourself. And, you encounter some nasty racist experience, but we didn't have a bad experience in Spain. So I'm just like, you have to really be able to navigate that, on your own a little bit.
Yeah. I think you always have to, where common sense permits.
Yeah.
Go and see for yourself. Because even you said Italy, and I'm immediately like, ooh, because I've heard some things about
we haven't been to Italy
I've
yet.
heard some things.
But
I
I'm
haven't been.
It's like a trend, you know what I mean? And so
I think part of it too is like, you start thinking about like racism, because there's like interpersonal racism, right? Like someone being racist to you, and then there's like that institutionalized racism. And I think because we haven't taken part in certain institutions, we just don't know what that's like. Like I've heard people in, I want to say it was Portugal, maybe it was Spain, talking about like getting an apartment. And like how if you're Black, that can be different because you show up to meet the landlord and they're like, And so they're in a situation, it's like, I don't know, maybe they're discriminating, or maybe not. But then again, I think maybe that's a thing too, where it's like, but are you like African? Or are you African American? And like, does it matter to them?
Yeah.
Or do you like have the money up front or not? What matters here? So right. I just think that's interesting. So I think the next thing is thinking about places where we felt like we sort of like were able to blend in being Black, and then other places where it felt more like we were standing out, and then what the difference is there and what that feels like.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in Guadalajara last year. As much as I love Mexico and I love Guadalajara, that city in particular is not very diverse. I felt like I stood out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't uncomfortable until I just wanted to be around more melanated people.
And fortunately they were there. But you had to like make an effort.
Yeah,
like we first got there, I posted in the group, I was like, where are y'all? Like we've been here for 2 weeks. I haven't seen a single Black person that I'm not like related to. And they're just like, oh, we just gotta, have a meetup or something. But like you have to be so intentional about it.
Yeah, I mean, when you see a Black person in the street in Guadalajara, you stop and ask, where are you from? How long are you staying? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm going to flag you down to find out, because we don't interact with each other often there. I would say other parts of Mexico were a little more diverse. Like, of course, Playa del Carmen, very touristy. Mexico City, just very diverse in general as a major city. And then where else would you say you stood out?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because now I'm thinking about Colombia and even what you said about Mexico. And one thing that I don't hear a lot of discussion around when people talk about like race around the world is the varying like shades of people. So like it's very easy to think like you're in Mexico and the people are Mexican, and so everyone is like the same like color.
Of color.
Very not true. Very much not true. And so it's the same way all through Latin America, right? And even in other parts of the world. So I think one thing that's interesting is like when we were in Colombia, like the difference in the color of the people in Medellin versus the color of the people in Bogota was different. And I think in Medellin, we blended in a lot more. Like one, there are a lot of just Black people there, right? Not just Black Colombians, but also Black people that have moved or immigrated or expatriated or whatever, right? Digital nomads there. But the people there were also just like browner. And I think because of that, it's just like, oh, I'm sure they've got like a cousin that's my color, or like their mother might be my color. And so there's this thing where it just feels more like close to home, even if it's not just exclusively Black people. And then in Bogota, the shade skewed a little lighter. And so there it was just kind of like, ooh, do we see any other Black people in Bogota?
Remember we stayed in that like financial business district, and we saw people working, maybe Americans working. There was like two. Yeah,
because Bogota's the capital, so you have there's that Ghanaian family at the park.
The Ghanaian family at the park.
Yeah.
And I think another guy was a refugee.
Yeah.
Selling stuff. So
but even then again it's like few and far between.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. We spend a lot of time in Latin America, and we haven't made it to like parts of Mexico. What is it? The Costa Chica, that's like super Black, or like other places like that. Even like Cartagena is very Black.
Yeah, even Buddy was like, why don't you go see the Caribbean side? Cartagena, Barranquilla, at the park.
We have to. Let's book a flight.
Let's do it.
But it's easy to, and I guess I say that to say, right? Like there cannot necessarily be like other Black people there, but depending on like what the vibe and the culture and like the shades of brown look like, it can still feel very much like you're at home or very familiar to you. So then you have places like Rio de Janeiro, which is super interesting. We were in Brazil, and the whole notion of blackness in Brazil is just very different, right? Because I think they have like 5 or 6 different check boxes on their census, which includes like yellow or indigenous or like white or black. Like they have like several different like just words and categories, basically on the scale of like very light white European all the way to like very, very dark. So I don't even know technically, I don't even know how black we are in Brazil. Like I assume that we're black. But like I don't know like where on the spectrum, because it's just a different system, right? Which is interesting. Yeah. But being black in Brazil, right, we were assumed to be Brazilian the whole time we were there. People were just speaking Portuguese to us. We didn't appear to be tourists to them or to stand out to them, which I think is really interesting. Brazil is probably one of the most like diverse in terms of like just shades of brown places that I've ever been. Mm-hmm. And that's like any phenotypical like blackness, that's like hair, that's like facial features, that's skin color. Like people are this like brown gold color that I feel like I've like never even actually seen before, like in real life. So Brazil is really interesting.
Yeah, you can easily blend in Brazil. I think that part of that blending in is similar to the United States, where maybe the whiter Brazilians discriminate against blacker Brazilians. There's obviously a bit of a caste system there. There's obviously darker shaded people maybe doing more manual labor, doing more behind the scenes work, right?
We saw that.
And the disparity in, poverty versus wealth. It skewed more white for the wealthy, more brown and black for people in poverty. So I think that a big part of like the comfortability that I felt in Rio was knowing like, hey, I blend in here, but definitely having to feel like I had to watch what neighborhoods I was in if I was without the family, and making sure that like I avoided the police all the time, because I heard about the police in Brazil. They have the same issues that we have in the U.S. Police brutality is really big, especially in Rio. And so I don't know, it's a double-edged sword, but I think if you learn how to navigate it, it was somewhere where I felt very comfortable.
Right. And it's interesting because we talked about this in our accommodation. They had a picture on the wall. They had a picture on the wall of like some women like picking cotton.
Picking cotton,
right? And so again,
we didn't notice it till like a
weekend.
Like
towards the and I was like, babe, come look at this. And so again, like as a Black American, particularly from the South, that's kind of like what's going on here. But Brazil is a lot like the U.S. in how all of that functioned with the slavery and plantations and things. I think the number of actual like enslaved African people brought to like the Americas as a whole, like more were brought to Brazil than the US. So like they have that very same like institutionalized, deeply embedded and ingrained sort of racism that you can be used to in the US. And I think getting back to like the pro and con of like standing out versus like blending in, there's this thing where it's like you feel comfortable because you're assumed to be Brazilian and you see people that look like you. What that does is take away that more like automatic like US privilege that you'll feel in other places. So it's kind of like that trade-off, right? To feel like you're blending in and like you're at home there also opens you up to being like, assumed. Like the police aren't going to look at you and be like, maybe I should chill because they're American. The police are going to look at you and be like, green light if they're like that type of police officer. So I think that's something that's just like, But again, with that being said, I felt comfortable the whole time we were in Brazil. From like safety, police, general encounters, like I didn't feel a lick of anything negative the whole time that we were in Rio. But that's something to bear in mind.
So when it comes to Europe, we'll do back to Europe. There are a few things that definitely stood out for us, being in Madrid and being in Lisbon, Portugal. Madrid being a capital city, a major city, we definitely noticed that there were a lot of, you'll see a lot of Black people, maybe Americans, maybe people from the UK, and maybe even people from Africa who are like working professionals, right? Like they work in some type of job that brought them to Madrid, and so they're in the capital city. And there was a lot of things that catered to Black people, right? Like we saw Black-owned restaurants in Madrid. We saw a lot of Black hair care product stores.
Yeah.
A lot of things to make it feel like, okay, I don't just stand out. I'm not the only Black person in this city, right?
Yeah. Finding like the kind of conditioner I needed in Guadalajara is hard pressed. But just wandering around Madrid, we found like 2 like Black hair care stores. So that's nice. I do think though, Madrid, like as far as like standing out and like blending in, I think Madrid is interesting because you can blend in that you're not completely like alone. So like, yeah, there are like other tourists and stuff. And then there are also people that come from like the Dominican Republic or like Cuba or like places like this that now live in Madrid. But I still get the impression that like the Black diaspora in Madrid is very much like immigrants.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it feels like in Portugal, like in Lisbon more specifically, it feels like a lot of the Black people there are more like, how do you say, like homegrown? Like they're actually like from there, like fully integrated and embedded into the culture. So, bless you.
Thank you.
So I think that's interesting because the difference is like you don't stand out in Madrid, you don't stand out in Lisbon, but in Madrid it feels very much like you're still sort of like an outsider. Like are any of the Black people actually from there? Whereas Lisbon, it's like a lot of Black people and people of color there are more like assumed to be like Portuguese.
Yeah. And you even did the Black slave history tour in Lisbon, Portugal, right? Where he talked about the fact that slaves were brought to Portugal to work. And so these are people who have been in Portugal for generations, and, they come in different skin tones, different shades, but these are Black Portuguese people versus in Spain, you don't see any Black Spanish people.
Yeah,
like,
which is interesting. And like, I'm sure they're out there. If you're like one of the 5 Black Spanish people that exist, like don't come for I'm sure you're out there. Yeah. But after being to like Malaga, after being to Sevilla, after being to Madrid and kind of like multiple times going through the country, it's just like, I have yet to meet one Black person in Spain that's like from Spain.
Yeah.
So like, if that's you, please let us know. But the Black people in Portugal, like we met several of them that like they just are Portuguese and they're also Black.
Having this conversation really makes me just want to go to Africa.
Let's go.
Like I'm
book a
like
flight.
listening to
Let's
ourselves.
go to Dakar.
I'm like,
let's start
why
in
are we
Senegal.
not just in Africa?
Why aren't we just in Africa? It's a big, beautiful continent. I'm ready when you're ready.
Let's go.
He's the problem. All right, so for the last bit of this, right, reflecting on our Blackness from a more like global vantage point, I know that like we have talked about what it feels like to be Black in different places. I think one thing that's important to kind of think about and talk about and acknowledge is also that like coming from an oppressed populace in the US and then going out into the world as a US citizen, you're now privileged. So sort of figuring out like what to do with that privilege and how to navigate it once you get to other places, particularly places like Latin America, we think about like the global South or whatever. I think that's something that we've spent a lot of time thinking about. How do we make sure that we're not gentrifying? How do we make, if that's even possible, how do we make sure that we're not out here just participating in, neo-colonialism, setting up shop in different countries?
Yeah. I haven't really come to an answer to that. I mean, I don't know if, like you said, if there is one, but I do think that learning about the history and about the culture of where you're visiting and learning how you can give back and what the locals like, what they dislike, what the marginalized locals, are struggling with and what they need our help with is also really important.
Do they need our help? Is that not just like a white savior complex?
No, because that man in Madrid that we met at the train station, I think he was Ghanaian. He said, "Hey, we're having a march."
Oh yeah.
And we just need as many people to come out as we can because we are marching to get more rights, essentially. So it wouldn't hurt to have some Black Americans with us.
He did.
You know what I mean? Like, they're marginalized people who are trying to immigrate or who have immigrated to Spain.
Yeah.
Same with like the indigenous people who live in South America and have been there forever. It's like they may not have a voice, and if there's any way that we can help, then we need to figure that out.
That's true. I know we even talked a lot about Argentina and like what happened to like all the like Argentinians of color and trying to figure that out. And I do think you have a point there. I think that especially like these days where like everyone has some semblance of a platform, I do think it's really important to make sure that you're spending time talking about things that are important and not just showing pictures of like the pretty beach that you're at or like the pretty buildings that you went and saw.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I think too, like being responsible with how and where we use our money is like a big thing. Like a lot of local communities have been hit hard because of digital nomadism. And I want so badly to like not be one of those people.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's possible. To like come somewhere and set up shop temporarily with USD and not be actively displacing someone.
Yeah, I think it takes time, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight when you go visit a new country. But when you think about learning about the politics of this city or country that you're visiting, that's like a step one. Like, we're here in America, right? In Atlanta, Georgia. If something is going on, it's like, what would you like to see from like the Latino population to like help be a ally to us as Black people? If something is going on, it's like you will see Latinos and Black people marching together, even if they are immigrants. And so being an immigrant means being able to, it starts from the beginning, but learning like about the politics of the country that you're visiting, which I think takes time. You can't just learn that a month from being somewhere. But yeah, I mean, we come from a place of privilege, and I just think being able to obviously use it positively.
Even like wrapping your head around the fact that like I have privilege, I think is like a first step is weird, but it's vital because it's really easy to like, I didn't realize how American I was until I left America for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Like, because I've always been very like, rah, I'm not American, I'm not, apple pie and this, not, and third isn't me. Like, I didn't really identify as being an American, which maybe sounds wild because I've lived here my whole life, right? But like, I didn't. I feel like there are a lot of Black people in the US who feel that way. Like, I happen to be born in America, but it's not like I'm like American.
Yeah. But the moment that AC goes out?
The moment the AC goes out, the moment the waiter takes too long, the moment like just your comfortability and like standards are kind of tested, like it's really easy for a lot of us to like fold a little bit. And the last thing that you want to do in a situation like that is like turn into a Karen, right? Or just be that ugly American out here who now has not only complaints, but privilege behind it. And I like to think that as Black people, like culturally, as ethnically African-American people, I like to think that it's not in our nature to behave that way. But, different environments bring out different things in you. So that acknowledgement, I think, has to be like step number one.
Yeah, you get the oddballs here and there who do, goofy stuff to make us all look bad. But I think, like, at the end of the day, just don't be a Karen. Do your research, do your homework, talk to the locals, and figure out how you can, adjust to life abroad. Because, again, you are going into another society. No one's forcing you to be there. You're choosing to be there. Yeah,
and that's part two, I think, of, like, release yourself of the bondage of like the chip on your shoulder of being Black in the US, because in your example of like there being like a queue in the pharmacy, like it's really easy to do a thing where it's like these racist you know what I mean, and then you just kind of like go off and things spiral and it's a bad situation. but like doing that somewhere maybe like that's not Europe, doing that somewhere like in you know, Mexico or in Chile or Colombia, where like because you have your passport and your USD, that's like a much bigger situation for the local people there that have to like deal with you, is just not good, you know. So we have to be cognizant of that for sure, I think. So I think more reflection on this experience is interesting because, of course, as we travel more and as we travel to different places, like we've been to Morocco, but like other than that, like we haven't even touched Africa, we haven't touched Asia. You know, I think it's interesting how our perception like will continue to like grow and develop and change as we do. Like even before we were filming this, we were talking about Tyla, the South African songstress who does not identify as Black. She identifies as being colored, which is a whole other, I don't know, hot seat topic for another day. But even the way that like literally race is just perceived in other places, or even like the Maori people, the indigenous people of Australia, who identify as Black, but some of us may look at them and be like, but are you? Like, I don't know. I think it's just neat. And I'm excited to see what new revelations pop up and how things change. But I'm also excited to see how our kids center their experience of race, having been to so many places and around so many different like people and shades of people, colors of people.
Yeah, and they're still so young that our son Xavier is just now starting to call people Black or not Black. He said that kid in his class is Black.
Yeah.
You know, the kid who...
He said that white man the other day, and I'm like, who are you talking... Yes, I was like, who are you talking about? And he was like, the white man. And I'm like, which one?
Oh my God.
Like, which one?
Yeah, up until now, they haven't really identified. You know, kids are kids, and they're at the park, and they're just happy to play with other kids. You know, we do plan to send our kids to school in these other countries. We plan to, of course, make... cohorts of connections with other expats, with other families. But I think that my takeaway is, of course, that, or what I would like is to obviously instill our kids with that sense of Blackness and being proud to be Black. And for them to have that dialogue with us to tell us when they feel like they're not being treated fairly.
Yeah.
You know, I want them to be able to come to us with whatever it is. Obviously, we don't want to pull them out of America to have an even worse experience somewhere else. But we are all learning and all navigating how to be Black abroad, really. Yeah, which is interesting. We've got to go to Africa. As you're talking, honestly, it's like... I'm just like, let's just send them to school in like Senegal. Yeah. That solves everything. That solves everything. All right, done and dusted, folks. The Orange Narcissuses are headed to the African continent. Y'all want to come with us? We're going. Yes. As soon as this check hits. We're going soon. No, I think, as far as like reflections and ruminations about Blackness Abroad, I think the most important thing for me is to, like, the place that I start with, I'm rooted in the African diaspora. Everything about me that makes me is rooted in the African diaspora. So regardless of like where we go, and these roots do run deep, so whether that's the Americas or through Europe or anywhere else, that's the vantage point that I have, is like understanding that my Blackness looks different to different people, or it may cause me to be treated differently in different places, is all fine and dandy, but ultimately it's like, you have to know yourself. You do. Know yourself. I say it like a Canadian, know yourself. I'm so excited to see Nana. That's what I was just thinking about. But anyway, can we... Okay, if you are Black, feel free to drop any thoughts that you have about being Black and abroad, how traveling has informed your sense of Blackness, and or, I don't know, if you share any of the same observations that we do, or if you disagree, that's cool too. We can have a conversation. So drop your comments and we will see y'all next time.